Right, so we now know how to select a curve amongst multiple curves, and I will switch to a different view here. Let's put it on 3 views, front, left, and perspective, and I will create this time a not a line object, but a create lathe. It really doesn't matter so much what type of object we're using, as long as we're just in the process of learning how to use the basic steps. And this one here will be perhaps something like a refrigerator handle. So we'll draw one outside curve, and we'll draw another one on the inside, a little bit kind of a zigzag line. Not perfect, but that's the idea. So we need to fix that. And what better ways to use that with than with the widget move? So let's right click this curve or right click this one. You see the one that gets selected is in yellow, and then we can use the widget move tool, and there it is. And the widget move tool has a couple of parameters: a shape that indicates whether you grab a whole points and move them all the same amount, or just a few tiny points, small area, and then also that reach of around the selected area. Okay, so if for instance you have a high reach, the scale is way up there, as you grab the middle point of this curve, it's not the only place moving. Many of the other points around the top and the bottom of that curve will also move with it. Right, if you grab the one here at the very end, that moves, but also some of the others move around with it. Whereas if you bring the scale down, it's going to limit it to just the area close to that point that you pick. For instance, if you grab this area here where it's caving in, you can move that, and you can even bring it down a little bit smaller on the scale and reach a point where you're sort of turning it back to an outside flex point. There's another one, and so that way you can do a little bit more local control, more local editing. Keep in mind also that this surface is defined dynamically and regenerated on the fly, so you have control here with the resolution slider of how refined that appearance actually is. On slower systems you might want to bring it down until you're done and ready to bring it up to high resolution for your final export or render. What I'm going to do next is use a different tool, and that's Widgit Rotate. That's also a great tool, the Widgit Rotate. Perhaps I'm going to use that on the outside here. Right click there to select it, and in fact I'm going to go full screen on this. And now when you do the Widgit Rotate, it's grabbing that point and flexing it around. Okay, so that's another one, and again it depends on how your scale is here. If you have a scale that's very high, it's going to rotate that entire thing, so that can be kind of messy. But one thing you want to do is perhaps keep it down a little bit. There you go, rotate that, flex that around. It's a great tool for adding folds. For instance, if this were part of a piece of clothing along the arm or the legs, and you want to add some folds to that. This one can also, just like the widget move, react to the shape as well. In fact, let me go back to the widget move, because that's really important to see what happens. If you have set the scale here, and then you want to see the difference between the shape this way and the shape this way. Now when you use this shape, whatever is in the selected range based on the scale will move in unison. Pretty much all of it moves the same amount. You see this section from here to here, the whole section here kind of moves by the same amount. Whereas if you bring it down to about this, like a bell curve, the one that you pick moves more, and the other ones will kind of follow, but far less, and the further away it is, the less it moves. And you can bring this all the way to the point where you have a shape like this, and then that point that you move is the one and the one only that actually moves. So you can create very spiky ridges and displacements in very strange shapes. And all the way while this is the case, you can still use S for shape. Right, you can hit the S key for smoothing, excuse me, not shape, and Shift S to smooth it even faster. So this is a really cool way to kind of create all sorts of different effects. In fact, let's finish this one with kind of a weird curve, or perhaps something that could eventually be entangled in a knot. And now I'm going to smooth it. I'm right-clicking the curve to selecting it, and then hit smooth, and it will smooth that curve back down to a straight line eventually if you do this often enough.